Hello, everyone, and welcome in to the Six Screens Telenetwork. And tonight, we have a program on here tonight. It's called Returning to Light. And this is the maiden voyage on YouTube. We have Chad coming in from the state of Illinois, and we have Roland. He'll be coming in shortly from the United Kingdom. But we're looking forward to the program. They are exposing the Watchtower. They want to talk to you about a lot of very, very interesting thoughts tonight on the Watchtower and how much control they have over you. So they'll be coming right on. I just want to mention one thing, Chad. We are getting some noise. Is that a fan or something going in the room?
Yeah, I can turn it off.
All right. So sorry that you can probably turn it down. We're picking that up.
There we go.
I hate to do that to you. It's probably hot over there, but I have a little fan here I put on too, but
It's all right.
Picks up on it. Okay, if it gets too hot though, just get up and put it back on again. Don't worry about it. Okay, so anyways, Chad, glad to have you on with us tonight. Welcome into YouTube, and I think it's going to be great that you're going to have this program along with Roland. And I'm going to leave it to you now to kind of take off with the program. Roland will be in with us shortly, but I'm sure you have enough to say. So go ahead, and I'll step out of the way.
All right, thanks. And yeah, Roland did just message me. He said that it says you can see him, so I don't know what's going on there. But pressing on anyway, because the show must go on. Today, we're going to be talking about culture shock. And it's something everyone experiences when they leave a cult, when they leave a high control group. So the first question has to be asked, what exactly is culture shock? Wherever we live, there's a culture that surrounds us. In America, we're used to American culture, which God, guns, pickup trucks, whatever you want to talk about like that. I'm in the Midwest, and that culture. Pretty much. Uh-oh. Hold on. I'm getting a call here. I'm sorry about that. I had a call from Rick and Roland come in. Anyway, culture shock is something that everyone has to deal with when they leave the Watchtower. We're all used to a certain culture. In our own families, we have a certain culture, and it's what makes us who we are. It's our traditions. It's just how we do things. So when a person leaves the Watchtower, they are going to be preconditioned to doing certain things. They're going to be preconditioned to going to a Wednesday night meeting, going out Saturday mornings, doing the door-to-door work. And when they finally leave, all that time that they devoted to the Watchtower is now completely open. And they don't know what to do with it. They don't know what to do with themselves. And it can be very, very frustrating. So I was doing some research. And one of the things that I heard was a woman who was a Jehovah's Witness. And she really felt called by Jehovah to go to China. And interestingly enough, she had never been there, didn't know anything about the culture, but had learned enough Mandarin Chinese that she would be able to live over there and work over there and hopefully start some kingdom halls. The problem she had is when she started meeting people, when she started meeting people and inviting them in, she had to take Watchtower publications and translate them into Mandarin for the people to be able to read. And she had to translate them orally when she would speak. So this caused a big problem because for the first time, she was really paying attention to everything the Watchtower was saying. And because she was extracted from the Watchtower culture that she was used to, she didn't have any elders looking over her shoulders. She didn't have any orders coming from a governing body. So that caused a major problem with this woman because now she had to think for herself. And what she ended up realizing with her little trip to China that she was supposed to be doing to start Kingdom Halls and get the work of Jehovah's Witnesses started over there is it was one big sham and a lie. And she was a part of a cult. And she ended up giving up and leaving, as it were. So it was that culture shock that she went through that actually pulled her out of the Watchtower because she no longer had to give all that time to the Kingdom Hall, to the door-to-door work. Once that happened, and she had to actually examine what the Watchtower was really teaching, it was nothing but the Watchtower publications themselves that brought this woman out of the Watchtower. And I see we have Roland. Roland, can you hear me okay, bud?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me okay, Chad?
I certainly do.
Oh, that's very good then. We're all set now then. After a few more technical issues. I think it's because I'm so far away. That's what it is. So,
I think so.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry, Chad.
I was just
carry on.
Yeah, I was just giving the introduction for the topic of the culture shock. And, one of the questions I had for you, when you first came out of the Watchtower, what was different in your life that you just didn't know how to cope with right away?
Well, there was quite a few things, really. I mean, first of all, the Watchtower will have you believe that everybody that's not a Jehovah's Witness, they're either, evil or they've got some bad ways about them, whatever it is, they might be alcoholics or they paint this really terrible picture of people who aren't Jehovah's Witnesses as long as the short bit. And you come out and all right, you interact with these people while you're a Jehovah's Witness, perhaps at work or something like that, but you don't interact with them much. You don't go to Christmas parties, staff parties, birthday parties, things like that. And so getting back into doing stuff like that was a massive shock. And to see that, they weren't all debauched and they weren't all, these horrible people who think only of themselves, was a bit of an eye-opener. And I was thinking this sort of week coming, we have in England, we have our Queen's Jubilee. And we're going to be having street parties. The local authorities are going to close down the main roads, some of the main roads and side roads and stuff. And we're going to have long tables and all the neighbourhoods going to come out. All the people are going to come out and we're all going to party and drink and eat together for the Queen's Jubilee. It happens once in a blue moon, that we do this. And I was thinking, if I'd just come out of the Watchtower, that would have been a shock for me as well, because to join lots and lots of people, I mean, I don't know how many, but there's going to be at least, I'd thought 50, 60, maybe 100 people at a table. To join all them people, to have a normal conversation with them without having to try and place magazines or Watchtower literature or, to break the conversation, basically, because that's what Watchtower, what Jehovah's Witnesses do. If they do come into contact with normal people, it's all about trying to place the book, trying to get a Bible study. They're never there just to enjoy themselves or to have a good time. It's all about, well, if we're mingling with the crowds, let's get the literature out,
Right.
So that was a bit, well, that would have been a shock for me. I mean, I'm going to go enjoy myself. I'm going to go and celebrate Our Majesty's reign, and third longest serving queen in the of history, in all of history, and yeah, and you know, we're all going to celebrate because she's been a good queen. Now, we couldn't do that as a Jehovah's Witness. There was no way we could get involved in worldly culture. And the Queen, definitely not celebrating anything to do with the Queen, because, you know, we should be giving our thanks to God, not to Queen and country. You know, despite Her Majesty does an absolutely fantastic job for the country. She's very caring, she's very kind. She's got a great sense of humour, and she does an awful lot of good for this country. And you know, and yet they won't even acknowledge that. You know, right. Nobody will be putting Union Jack flags up. Nobody will be putting bunting up where the Jehovah's Witnesses are concerned. And you know, doing all that sort of thing, that was a shock to me, to come out and to be able to do things like celebrate Christmas. Even the first year or so, when I first stopped going to the meetings, before I actually handed my disassociation letter in, while I was just inactive, you know, I didn't really celebrate Christmas or birthdays. I just still felt too bad about it. And going round, I couldn't enjoy the festivities of the year, you know, the feelings that you get at Christmas, you know, all that jolliness, because I felt guilty about liking it, you know. And as time went on, I just thought to myself, well, you know, I started looking into it. I realized I was wrong. You know, and a lot of stuff that they do is pagan anyway. So, like white wedding dresses, wedding rings, all pagan based, yet they're quite happy to do that, to get, you know, married in white wedding dresses, etc. That's pagan in origin, but that's fine apparently. But Christmas, no. Birthdays, no. So when I started getting invited to people's birthdays and things like that, I was very reluctant to go. And when I did, I was expecting to sort of have to leave early because it'd be full of, you know, people being drunk and perhaps sexual debauchery and stuff like that. That's what we'd been led to believe, you know, that these things would happen. And when I got there, and it was all perfectly civilized, we may have had a couple of drinks, but nothing out of the ordinary, nothing major. Nobody was getting hammered and falling about, and there was no sexual debauchery or anything like that. That come as a surprise in a way, I suppose, in the back of my mind. So there was lots of things really, and then just sort of not having that routine. You know, not having to get up and go out on a ministry on a morning, not having to go to the meetings on a Thursday night, a Sunday morning, or an afternoon. Sometimes it was either, because we used to share a hall, so we used to take it in turns each year. That routine just went, and I found that hard to fill, because I hadn't been used to filling things for myself. Because if I had any spare time, it went on the ministry, or it went on preparing for the meetings or for the talks that I did, or preparing with the girls, my daughters when they was younger, you know, taking them out, getting preparing, having home studies, Bible studies with them, and there was always something to take up a time in the organisation. You never really had any free time to yourself. Even if you thought you did, you didn't, because you was always really thinking about, you know, your next study or your next ministry or whatever. It's always there in the back of me. You can't settle at night time because, you know, you think, oh, I've got to go out early in the morning, so I've got to be on form. And if you're leading the group, you know, you've got to have something to pray about. And not having all that when I come out and was a big shock. And to have to think sort of for myself, and to sort of try and fill my day and do other things and try and get involved with different people out in the world was difficult, but we got there. And then I did start, after I'd handed me notice, and I started celebrating Christmas. You know, I put my Christmas tree in the bay window, which is right next to the main road. Everybody has to go past, the JWs included. I put it there loud and proud. You know, so that was difficult to overcome. Going to another Christian church, I think that was the hardest. I plan to leave.
that.
Yeah, you know, I plan to leave the JWs. I wasn't going to get involved in religion again. I believed in God, and I was just going to serve God in my own way, and I was going to pray to Him and keep in contact. But I wasn't going to go to any religion. I didn't want it after I'd been to the JWs. I didn't want that kind of bondage again, you know. And I just felt, you know, I've given 19 years of my life away. Why would I do it for another church or whatever? And that was half what I was expecting when I went to another church. I was expecting, I was going to have to give me time in whatever it was the church needed doing, whether that was ministry or maybe, you know, whatever it was we needed to do, you know, even just doing bits around the church, doing the gardening and stuff like that. You know, we used to have to sort of, well, they asked for volunteers to go up to the kingdom or to do the gardening, but you was almost under pressure to do it a lot, you know, come and help out at the kingdom, or do the gardening, many hands, all that sort of thing, you know. So you felt almost obliged a lot of the time to do these things. Whereas when I got to the church, and also the other thing I was expecting when I walked into the church for the very first time, I was half expecting him to be dancing around with rattlesnakes. Well, not rattlesnakes in this country, maybe adders, but you know, and that unsettled me because I wasn't sure what I was going to expect, because you hear so many stories as a JW, or you know, they kneel down in front of the cross. And I think Catholics possibly do. I don't know, but we certainly don't. We don't worship the cross. We don't idolize the cross. We use it as, I've got a necklace on that's a cross. But we just use it as an identification to, you know, to say that we're Christian, and to have that around me, and to have that around my neck, and then to have people approach me and start talking to me, you know, and it was really friendly, because as a Jehovah's Witness, if they see you coming, 9 times out of 10 they run the other way, and I don't blame them, or they hide behind the settee. But I actually found, when I'd got a cross on my neck, even people that weren't necessarily Christians, or you know, or they was just interested in something about the Bible, they would come and approach me. You know, strangers would come up to me and start talking to me, you know, as, oh, I see you're Christian, you know, do you mind me asking? Or
yeah, the same has happened to me.
Yeah, you know, and it was a shock, because I wasn't expecting that, because I've been used to people running and hiding, you know, and they was very friendly, and they wanted to know, which was another shock, because, you know, a lot of the time, you go around and people avoid you, but when you do find them, you know, oh, well, no, you know, I've got my own religion, or I'm not interested, or, you know, or I don't believe in what you believe, shut the door, bang, that's it, end of, you know. And so I think I was expecting people to be a lot more hostile than they are, because that's sort of what I've seen on the ministry. And that's what we've been led to believe, that the non-JWs, Christians or not, if they're other Christians, or in fact other Christians were probably worse in some respects, because, you know, they were the opposition, if you like, whereas people who just didn't believe, they were just a blank canvas, you know. They could perhaps draw them in, but no, you know. And when I finally did start going into the church, it was all perfectly normal. It was not much different in some respects to a Kingdom Hall meeting. It was all perfectly quiet, and it was, you know, there was kids there, there was a little bit noise, but nothing serious, you know, and it was an easy to listen to, easy to understand. Everybody was really friendly, because that was the other thing as well. I wasn't expecting anybody to be particularly friendly, but I walked into this church, and then, you know, people come up to me and they were genuine, and every one of them now, they've helped me more in the last year or so than the JWs helped me in 19 years. In fact, they've made my life better, whereas the Jehovah's Witnesses made my life worse. And that was a shock, you know, because we're not sort of told to expect that either. You know, it's all about staying away from the world, and so when I'd imagine it's even worse for people brought up in the truth, because if they choose to leave, they've known absolutely nothing of culture, of real culture, because they're sort of wrapped in cotton wool for the first few years. They're not allowed to go playing with kids, other kids, You know, when they get a bit older, the parents still keep an eye on them, or, you know, they're not going to nightclubs, things like that. So when they do finally go out, and they do finally have to go into it, and they do start getting asked out to places, it must be really hard for them to actually make that leap. Well, that would be my opinion, because it was a struggle for me, and I'd only been in JW for 19 years, but that 19 years probably seemed more like 50, you know, and in terms of brainwashing and the way they'd altered my thoughts on culture. I mean, I'd lived in the real world before I was a JW, but I'd totally forgotten. I'd totally forgotten what culture was like. I'd totally forgotten what real people were like. I just believed everything I heard from the governing body, you know, like an idiot. But we were all the same. We couldn't, you know, we just didn't think to question it. You know, we was told not to question it. You know, we couldn't even look at old magazines. We couldn't look at other religious books. So when I went out and I started looking at other religious stuff, particularly, that was also a shock, because I thought, well, this makes so much sense, and no wonder they didn't want us to read it. You know, so it's things like that, Chad. Anyway, so I'll let you get, back to you, mate.
Oh, no, I can resonate, and everything you're saying resonates with me, because I know before I was a Christian, I was an atheist. And when I became a Christian, you know, it was a period of time that God had worked on me. And what ended up happening was I transitioned into an entirely new culture. And the way it was always put to me, and it's so simple. You live in the world, you're just not part of that worldly type of system. So I had friends that would go out and get drunk and all this other stuff, and I chose not to. And amazingly, a lot of them were okay with that. I wasn't forced to be a part of the crowd. I wasn't expected just to go with the flow. Now, in certain groups of friends, that was true, but overall, it really wasn't. And I know there's times when I've met with some Jehovah's Witnesses, and I have helped lead a few of them out, and some they've been good friends to me. And one thing I always tell them is work on just making one good friend. And you know, I've taken a couple of ex-J-dubs under my wing just to get them used to talking to people, to get them used to having regular conversations, to get them involved in a hobby, something that interests them, and then being able to make contact with other people in that hobby. And that has really, really helped them a lot. And I mean, I was watching a show on YouTube about these Americans who were just obsessed with Japanese culture. And they ended up moving to Japan. And at first they absolutely loved it because they knew everything about Japanese culture. And after about 6 months, 8 months, they couldn't stand it anymore. They wanted to move back home because the culture shock got to be too much. They understood the beauty of the Japanese culture, but then they got loaded down with all the rules that they had to memorize. When you're eating, you know, you never put your chopsticks straight up and down in a bowl of rice. That's very disrespectful. You always lay them sideways across it or next to it. And there's just so many rules. Even how you hand a business card to someone, it's just amazing. But what ended up happening was they thought they knew, and they thought they'd be able to live with that culture. But once they got into that culture, it very quickly started to take a toll on them. And most of them, within 6 months, they were getting tired. And after a year, they were moving back to America. And they still love their time in Japan, and they still love to visit, but they never go back. So I guess the next point, the next question I'd like to pose to you is, what do you see as some activities or things you could do that would get you acclimated to the non-Jehovah's Witness culture?
Well, I mean, I think, you know, I mean, it was a bit easier for me, I suppose, because I got family who weren't Jehovah's Witnesses. So I would sometimes, you know, mingle with people that they knew, and friends of theirs, and I'd get to know them a little bit. So maybe if you got friends and stuff who aren't Jehovah's Witnesses, you know, introduce them to them first. Maybe invite them round for a meal, perhaps, or something, and get a conversation going around the table. Let the Jehovah's Witness, particularly if they've been in the truth pretty much all their life, or I say truth, their truth, not our truth. That's what they call it, but it's not. I mean, it's far from the truth as you can get. But you know, maybe you know, indulge in some conversation that make sure it's not too heavy at first. You know, let's not get too religious at first, because, you know, a lot of witnesses, when they first leave the organization, they don't want to be bombarded necessarily with religion. They want to get as far away from that for a while as possible. My hope is that they all do turn to Christ in the end, but I can understand that they may want to give it a miss for a while, because, to be honest, I still believe in God. I still prayed. That was perhaps the difference for me, but I didn't want to get involved in religion and stuff like that. So it's probably best not to go overburden them with that straight away. I mean, I do my best to, you know, when I find ex-witnesses, if they've been out a while, then I do my best to try and, you know, bring them to the Lord. I mean, you know, but I make sure they've been out a little while first, you know, just to give them a chance to breathe, get to know the world first before they start thinking about religion again. But so one of them things, yeah, to take them perhaps and invite them around just to your home, a relaxed environment, nothing too, you know, heavy. That's a start. You know, maybe, you know, then perhaps take them, I don't know, if you've got a few friends, or perhaps you go into a meal or a pub or something. Well, a pub, you know, a bar in York. You know, then perhaps invite them to that. Just build it up in little bits. You know, I think that's probably the best way is just to build it up steady, and not to try and push them too much, because it can be overwhelming as well. You know, it's like when we return to the light, when people come out of a dark coal mine, if they've been in there for a while or in darkness for a while, you know, it can blind them when they come out. The light can blind them, and it's very similar in you know, when you come out the Jehovah's organization, Jehovah's Witness organization. You know, when you leave the kingdom all doors, it's very dark. It's very spiritually dark. It's very dark in the personalities are quite dark, and, you know, there's a lot of stuff going on, and you come out and you're free. Your shackles have been, you know, you've been unchained basically, and there is a temptation, I think, with some ex-witnesses that I've found, that they can go a little bit too wild. It can overstimulate them. You know, they want to try everything at once, perhaps, you know, because they've been trapped for so long, and they're looking forward to perhaps sampling the world because they've been told for so long not to. And I think sometimes that can overwhelm them a bit, and they can get taken down the wrong path, you know, quite easily. And I mean, we were talking, weren't we, about that woman in China, she went to China, didn't she, as a missionary. She was a Jehovah's Witness, and because she had to speak in Mandarin, it wasn't her first language, that was her second language. Because she was then speaking in Mandarin, she had to think about what she was actually saying. She could hear herself saying it, and then she started to realize how much, rubbish that sounded like. And I think the Chinese culture there, that stimulated her, because then she started getting into New Age stuff and what have you. And she was starting to, I think she was just basically, if I remember rightly, she was going out enjoying life and perhaps going to the extreme, but which was a shame as well. But that's how it happens, you see. Something just clicks, and then once you come out, you either want to sample everything, and that's including other cultures and like she said, the Chinese, they've got centuries of culture. Who was she to sit there telling them anything, you know?
Right.
But when then she just felt like, I suppose, defeated in a way, that there was no point to whatever she did, and so she went completely the other way, and that was a culture shock. That was a culture shock. It overwhelmed her, and I think it's very much the same with a lot of them. So anyway, yeah.
So I think one thing I would always advise someone who's coming out of the Watchtower, no matter for what reason, no matter what the reason is that they're coming out, the one thing I would advise them to do is to take into consideration the story of the tortoise and the hare. And just remember how the tortoise took things slow and steady and kept a decent pace and had no problems and ended up finishing and winning the race, while the hare was just going crazy and he ended up losing because he got distracted from everything else. And I bring that up because how many XJWs have we seen that have ruined their lives because they get out and then they just start going crazy? And some of them fall into alcohol, some fall into drugs, some fall into adultery, and they start cheating on their spouse. We've seen all that just in the past year. So I think, and I'd really like your opinion here on this, but I think a good solid piece of advice is to take things slow and just look around and enjoy the freedom that you now have.
Yeah, that's it. I would say that exactly. I mean, I would say just come out and just breathe. You know, just take everything in slowly and just, for a start, enjoy the moment of being free. Enjoy the shackles being, you know, unlocked for, you know, and just you know, just enjoy that freedom for a little while. That's what I did. I just got and adjust to it, because you know you do have to adjust to that. You know, because it's so set in your mind, the routines and things. Like I said earlier, you know, you do have to adjust, you know, to not having that.
Right.
And I also think some of them, they come out, they think, oh, well, you know, that's me, we're gone. That's the Watchtower behind us. We don't need to think about them anymore. But I guarantee you, at some point, something, especially if you've had a really bad time in there, and if you're leaving, it's possible that you have. You know, I think. Sorry, what was I saying? Lost my line of thought. What did I say? Just remind me.
You were talking about enjoying the shackles being gone. And
yeah, you know, just take that in and then just, you know, maybe think, oh, you know, maybe there's something you've wanted to do for a while as a Jehovah's Witness that you haven't been able to do. You know, maybe take it on if it's not too major. You know, go and do it. You know, if that's what you want to do, go and do it. You know, if you want to go and take in a concert or something like that, you know, or go and see a comedian perhaps that you wouldn't have risked going and seeing as a JW, well, go and see them. You know, enjoy yourself. Get that freedom there. You know, and just let yourself loose, but not too fast and not too. You know, just take your time and think about things a bit and take in the freedom, and then just take it one day at a time, I think, and 1 week at a time, and so forth. You know, that's basically, you know, what I did, and you know, now I'm having a really good life. You know, I'm enjoying the relationships I have at the church. The pastor is absolutely wonderful there. He took me under his wing. He's never too busy for me. You know, and when I was going through mental health illness a few weeks back, really badly, I was suffering from psychosis and because of the bipolar and stuff. I texted him in the night. I didn't expect him to see it. But he did. He woke up early in the morning, a lot earlier than usual, about 5 in the morning, and he saw me in a message saying I was in a bit of a state. Next thing I'm getting a phone call, come across here, Rolly, I don't want you being on your own. 5 o'clock in the morning. He'd only just got, well, he wasn't even going to get up. He just saw my message. He was going to lay in bed for another sleep for a couple of hours, I think. But he had the time. Now, with the Jehovah's Witnesses, I once rang an elder not long after my wife died. It was about 12 at night. I was mentally, struggling, not just with the grief, but with the bipolar. I rang him up about midnight, and he said, "Do you know what time it is?" I said, "Well, I think it's about midnight, isn't it?" He said, "Well, yeah." He said, "So what are you ringing me for at this time of night?" He said, "Why are you ringing people at 12 o'clock at night?" I said, "Well, I'm in a bit of a mess. I didn't know who to turn to. Everybody else, obviously, I thought you might still be about." He said, "Well, yeah." He said, "But I'm in bed." He says, "You don't go ringing people at this time of night. He says, think about other people, not just yourself. So yeah, and yeah, the pastor, at my church, absolutely the opposite. He wouldn't care if it was 12 o'clock at night, 3 in the morning. It wouldn't matter to him. He would be there for me because he knows, he is a true Christian. I mean, he loves people, and he's been an absolute godsend to me, and I really appreciate the fact that I was led there by I personally. I mean, I know not everybody on here is necessarily Christian or have gone into Christianity, but I am, and I truly believe that God led me there, and I can see why, because it's just completely the opposite to what the JW's was. I feel relaxed and doing stuff for the church. Nobody's ever forced me to do anything. There's sometimes asked for volunteers, but you're not forced to. Nobody frowns on you if you don't. Nobody's like looking down on you and saying, "Oh, you're not doing your bit, you're not doing your ministry, you're not helping out around the church or whatever." It just, lets you do it. But because he lets you do it, I tend to do a lot more now. And I find when I do evangelizing, that's a lot easier because I'm enjoying it. You know what I mean? I actually love to do it, and I do it spontaneously more so than making a point of going out anywhere. I tend to do it spontaneously, and it works so much better. And because I've done it spontaneously, 2 people are coming to our church because I spontaneously spoke to them as I was going past. They've never been into church before. They've never been to church. One of them had got mental health issues. We have a mental health group, Christian well-being group on a Wednesday afternoon, which I sometimes, a lot of the time, or a good lot of the time, I'm there helping him share, and sometimes I'd share and what have you. I think I sort of helped him set it up a bit because he was a bit unsure, because the pastor himself has not had much experience of mental health issues himself. But, so he let me settle up. Anyway, they were walking past the site, and I noticed one of them seemed to be a bit down. I started talking to him, invited him along to the mental health group. I mean, it's for Christians and people, church members and non-church members, members of the public, members of the community. And they come, and actually you got a mate with them, and they both come, and they've been coming now for months, and it's now starting to come to all the service meetings and stuff. So it's a lot easier doing it like that. It's just so spontaneous. I feel happy when I'm doing it, and there's no pressure, and and that's the other thing about the JWs. We have a mental health group and stuff. We invite all the people from the surrounding area. They don't have to be members of the church. They can come in if they want to talk about their issues, or they just want to sit there and have some company. That's fine. Free tea and biscuit. We'll sit there. We're there about an hour and a half. But we invite the community. We invite people from different cultures as well. I mean, there's not loads around here of different cultures, but there's 1 or 2. But we would do if they come. We would invite them in, and we would sort of let them come and chat, and and that was the thing, because I thought, well, Jehovah's Witnesses, they don't do anything to promote mental health for their own people. I mean, they had the odd magazine saying this, that, and the other, but It's total rubbish. And but they don't really, they don't sort of have any groups like that. They don't go inviting people who aren't Jehovah's Witnesses into the Kingdom Hall for things like that. They don't help with charity. And yet our church does. And that was quite a shock as well, the amount of stuff that our church was all about the community. It's not about the church. It's about the community at large. It's reaching people who need our help. It's some of our area of this town where I'm in is a little bit run down here and there, and there's a few people struggling financially at the minute, and we're there for them, and you never see a JW do that. So that was a bit of a shock to me as well, a culture shock and a Christian shock, because I wasn't expecting it, so it's so much different to what you're led to believe, and you're told you can't get through life without the organisation, telling you what to do every 5 minutes. You're told you can't get through life by mixing with worldly people because they'll lead you down the wrong path. No, they don't. Yes, there's bad people in every walks of society, but they, as a rule, on average, you're fine. It's people are just people. They're nice, they're talkative. I walk uptown, up to the shops every day. It's not far from where I live. I go to the local shop, and I can guarantee every time I walk up and down there, complete strangers will stop and speak to me. Just randomly. I have no idea who they are. They just come up to me and start talking to me, oh, nice day, and then they start talking. And as a Jehovah's Witness, I'd have been a bit reluctant to get too involved with them. I'd have just sort of, yeah, it's a nice day, lovely day, blah, 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 and that'd have been it. Or I'd have been trying to place a magazine with them,
Right.
But it's just nice to be able to walk up and have a chat with somebody, some random stranger walks up, they don't avoid you. They walk up, they start talking to you, they're very friendly. And you can just have a general chat without having to think about placing magazines and stuff like that, or being paranoid, perhaps, of them. What are they after?
Religion.
Yeah, why have they come up to me? What's this about? And that sometimes takes a bit when you've come out of jail. Well, why are these people approaching me? Because you're not used to it, So it's a big thing,
And I think a big part of it is with Watchtower culture. It's almost as if the Jehovah's Witnesses are trained to always look for the bad and look at the bad. So when you come out of the Watchtower, you no longer have everyone else right there with you. Yeah, look at that, how bad it is. And nobody's just sitting there and agreeing with you, and you're not used to that. So then you're in a culture where we admit, yes, bad things happen, but so do good things. And we can choose to focus equally on the good as well as the bad. And I think one thing right there, I think from that observation, I think there's a key we can take away, that instead of being a negative Nancy, be a positive Polly. And for an ex-JW, someone coming out of the Watchtower, write yourself a note if you have to. But get yourself in the habit of looking for the good in situations, the good in people, just the good in life, and find things that actually bring you joy. And I'm not talking about like going to a comedy show that's going to make you laugh. I mean things that genuinely deep down make you happy. I know with one of the guys I mentored when he came out of the Watchtower, and just so everyone knows, he's not a Christian. I hope he does become one, but he's not. And one of the things he really loved doing was gardening. So he started planting vegetable gardens, and he did one at his house, and now he had all this extra time, and he talked to his neighbors, and a couple of his neighbors gave him permission to use part of their yard to plant vegetable gardens. And the trade-off is they get to go and take whatever they want from the garden, and he gets whatever he wants, and he takes care of everything. He loves it. And now, as a non-Jehovah's Witness, a non-Christian, he's able to take some of those vegetables and he shares them with people. Yeah. And he did remark to me about how it makes him filled with hope and love and joy just to see the look on people's faces when he gives them a bag full of carrots and tomatoes and cucumbers.
Yeah.
And especially when they're not expecting it. And he's like, oh, here's some fresh produce. I grew it myself. Hope you enjoy. And let's face it, whenever you grow that stuff, it tastes way better than the stuff you get from the market.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, I think it can be anything. It doesn't just have to be gardening. It can be going and watching trains. It could be just taking up watching sports, or like you said, going to music concerts, going to art galleries, even just going for walks in the park.
Yeah. I mean, maybe sort of join maybe just jump in there. Maybe just sort of, like I did, I joined a club or two, like play badminton and stuff like that, because you're mixing with a few people. There's not loads there maybe, but you're mixing with a few people, and it's just slowly easing you into that, being around people who aren't Jehovah's Witnesses, and you start to get used to them, and so maybe, things like that doesn't overwhelm you with people and doesn't overwhelm you with culture or whatever, because you're playing badminton. I mean, what more, or whatever it is you're doing, I mean, in my case, it's badminton or whatever, but, do things like that. I know, I must admit, I was thinking, I mean, you're saying about that guy, he loves people and what have you, he's helping, he's handing out veg and stuff like that. I found when I left the JWs that I was quite cold-hearted, even though I'd been through everything I'd been through, and I was perhaps more sympathetic as a JW than a lot of them to people. I mean, I did have feelings, but not it took a lot to jerk them, if you know what I mean. I never had much empathy with other people at all, really, and I think, if they was going through a situation, I think, oh, well, that's awful. And I'd be sympathetic, but not really empathetic as such. And I must admit, when I left, I started to find that it was easy to love people, and it was easy to get to know these people, and it was easy. Even if they didn't necessarily like me or whatever, I found it easier to get along and not be so offended or whatever, and if, and accept that some people don't agree with us, accept that some people aren't going to like us, but for the most part, they do, and they're not as bad as they think, but I just felt I go out and, these people are coming up, they're chatting away, perfect strangers. And I'm thinking these people aren't so bad, so right. I started to sort of feel my heart melting a bit. And then of course, I had an experience with Holy Spirit and that totally melted my heart, I think. I think that it was that moment really. But along with, getting to know people and mixing with people and getting and listening to people, because that's the thing Jehovah's Witnesses don't really do. They'll pretend they do, they'll come round to your house when you're having a Bible study. Oh, how's your week been? Oh, I've had some trouble at work, it's not been very good. I've been stressed out. Oh dear, I'm sorry to hear that. Well, there's a scripture here, and we can look at that in this book to this week, how to deal with it. It's all about the book. It's all about the in the day Bible teach book, whatever it is these days. It was all about getting the study started. They weren't interested in you whatsoever, and they pretended to be. But all they were thinking about was getting that study over and done with. They'd planned that study in their mind. They knew exactly what they was going to say and ask. And that's all they could think about. They weren't listening to me or anybody else. And I wasn't listening to, a lot of the time to them when I was doing Bible studies or whatever, or studying with people. I was just getting on with the next question. And so I found after I left them, I did actually start to listen to people, and I started to, hear their stories, and I'd be thinking, well, they've gone through all this, and it's all, and I started to really empathize, and I just wanted to help people then, and that was something as a JW I just didn't really want to do. I just didn't want to engage with people. But now I love being around people. I absolutely love being in company. As a JW, I would be, even in family situations, a lot of the time I'd be very withdrawn. I may have gone to a family meal if it wasn't birthday or whatever, but I would be sat back. I wouldn't be saying an awful lot, especially if there was other people there that perhaps were either very distant family that I don't have much contact with, perhaps, and they've come over, or friends of me, sisters or whatever, are there. I just used to, I'd talk to them if they spoke to me, but I didn't engage in conversation too much, and now, you have a job to shut me up, so, I can talk, I can talk for England, so when I get going, so yeah, so it's, it's a massive shock. And I tell you what, it's all these things together, all this new life, all this sort of enjoying being able to celebrate Christmas, being able to go to birthdays, being able to go out for a drink, not being suspicious of people when they ask something. It's all been, it's all gone to make it's enriched my life. It really has now. I feel a completely different person now to what I was a few years back as an active JW. All that pressure's gone, and the only culture that was destructive to me was theirs. I mean, 19 years, and the majority of them 19 years, my life was a complete misery for most of it. There was constantly finding fault, and I find that, with people out here, people find fault with people, especially online and stuff like that. People are always love to have a go at people, but for the most part, they don't, they're right with you. If I fall, they pick you up. They don't kick you when you're down. And I found a lot of witnesses would do that. If you slipped up, or maybe, I don't know, you're doing something that they didn't particularly like, or it's a bit worldly or something like that, and maybe you fell, or maybe you was doing well, you was coming up in the congregation, you'd be getting to be a ministerial servant or an elder. You might, something might happen, you make a bit of a slip, and everybody piles in on they almost love it. They love you falling flat on your face.
Right.
They almost glee from it. They wouldn't admit to it, but they do. They do, because they used to talk to me about it. The other elders would say to me about certain people, and it was almost a glee in it. You know what I mean? It was almost like, oh, I told you he'd slip up. I told you he wasn't, this godly person or whatever. It was almost like, look at me, I'm more Christian than you because you've done that. Look at me, my family's perfect. We're all ministerial servants, as sons or elders, or my daughters are all pioneers, special pioneers, gone away to Bethel. There was always this sort of bragging almost. It was like, oh, my daughter's in Bethel, or or my daughter's doing this, or my son's just been made up to an elder, and there was sort of this pride. It was beyond pride, though. It wasn't just being happy for the fact that the son had been made up to an elder. It was, oh, look at my son, look at my family. My son's grown up to be an elder. That means I must be a good parent, you know, I must be godly, and I must have instilled the right godly fears into them, you know, because now they're an elder. Look at them, you know, and look at you, you know, you was going to be an elder, but you got kicked off or whatever, you know what I mean? And that's the sort of attitude they have almost, you know. It's an unspoken probably attitude, but every JW will know what I'm talking about. They all know what I'm talking about. All ex-JWs, JWs, they know it. Even the active JWs, they know what it is. Even if they wouldn't admit it, they know in their minds that is what happens. People get proud of their lifestyle as a Jehovah's Witness. They're better than the Joneses family, you know, or the Brown family's better than my family, the Smith family, you know. Look at us, you know. I mean, I once pulled an elder up once because he was having a go at the parents in the congregation. He said that if your child or children or any children leave the congregation, you know, leave the truth, as they said, but leave the JW org and turn away from God, then it's the parents' fault. You know, you haven't done your job properly. At the end of the time, I mean, that really infuriated me. Because there was one or two people there, really good people, very genuine people. The kids had left, they weren't interested, nothing to do with the parents. And I went up to him at the end. I said, "Oh, so are you saying that you're a better parent than God then?" And he said, "What do you mean? What do you mean?" And I said, "Well, you're saying if a child leaves God or leaves the organisation, the parent has failed." And he says, "Well, yeah." I said, "So what about Satan? What about Adam and Eve?" I said, "Were they not God's children? Did they not rebel?" So he's got a bad parent. Are you a better parent than God because all your family is still following the organisation? They're all going off to be pioneers. They're all doing. Some of them are your brothers are elders. Your dad's an elder. You know, so that must make you a better person than God, does it? You know. And he didn't know what to say. He just didn't know what to say because he knew I was right. Because Satan rebelled, Adam and Eve rebelled. God's the perfect parent. There's nothing more perfect than God. And yet, listening to him, the way he was saying, I mean, that's exactly what he was saying. You know, because if our children left God, then that was the parents' fault. Well, you know, God's children left him, but you couldn't get any more perfect than God. You know, so I mean, and that's the thing. You know, you just you're in this culture of you know, it's spiritual snobbery is what it is. Spiritual snobbery, I'd call it. You know, and you know, they're always looking for, you know, other people doing things wrong. You know, I mean, one poor bloke, he went round to a sister's house once. He went to put some shelves up him, and he was doing nothing wrong. He just went in, he put the shelves up. She was on her own. He didn't think. He just went in, put the shelves up, come out. He was happily married. He wasn't. I mean, there was nothing. But they accused him of all sorts, you know, because he'd been into this woman's house, you know. And he said, "I never even thought about it." He said, "I just went in, put the shelves up, come out," you know, and all that. They'd got him having an affair and cheating on his wife, you know. I mean, oh, they're so judgmental, and that's the thing I find as well. I expected worldly people to be a lot more judgmental, especially when you see things like in the press, because you know, you see things in the press and people are judging other people, and so you do sort of see that in the world, but among just general people, you know, people that you just bump into, generally the general Joe that walks down the road, most of them aren't actually that judgmental. You know what I mean? They're certainly not as judgmental as the JWs. You know, yeah, you know. Is somebody trying to call in? Go ahead, caller, if you're there. Nobody there, Rick?
No. No, I guess not. But if anybody does want to call in, the phone number is 727-731-6701. Give us a call if you want. Yeah,
come in with your experience. How did you people out there, you ex-JWs and what have you all, or if you're FEMO and you've just left and you're inactive, you've not actually left yet, What do you find? Have you found it difficult to adjust to culture outside the JW org? Give us your experiences, your ideas, and call in, because this show is for you people. We're the hosts, but the program is yours. So you make the program with your call. So please call in. We're waiting for you. Well, will you carry on, Chad? And if somebody calls in, we'll stop.
Yeah, I know for me, when I came out of the Word of Faith movement, I know I was having a hard time because my entire worldview was just shot. Because when I was in that movement, my view on it is, if somebody got sick, it's because they were in sin. And there was nothing, it had nothing to do with germs or anything else. It was just about sickness. So as long as I was healthy, if someone around me was sick, I was always thinking the worst of them. And finally, when I came out of that, I realized people get sick for a number of reasons. And it's not always sin. Most of the time, it's not necessarily sin. And then another thing, I was really big into the whole positive confession stuff. So I was real big about never saying anything negative, because I believed that my words were going to shape reality. So I didn't want to say anything negative. I only wanted to say things that were positive. So in one way, I was the exact opposite of a Jehovah's Witness. And when I came out of it, I went crazy in the other way, to where all of a sudden everything was negative. And it took me a while, but I finally, realized there's good in the world and there's bad, and you got to have a balance, and you have to find a way to find your own balance, and you have to learn to take an inventory of yourself and look at what's important to you. And once I stopped taking everything so incredibly seriously, and once I found things to take joy in, my life was a whole lot better. And I'm still, I'm still learning and I'm still growing. But I remember a couple of years after I came out of it, I was in a much better place, and I was dating a girl. We went to a town near us, and we just went out for supper one night. We wanted to get out of town and go out to eat, so we did. And we were done eating. We were leaving the restaurant, and there was a guy walking, and I just struck up a conversation with him. And we were getting into the car, and she leans over the car, looks at me, and I say, "What?" And she says, "You just love to make friends everywhere you go." And she started laughing. And it was at that point I realized I really have changed, because I wasn't always looking for the negative. And I was expecting people to be more positive than what I was, expecting. So I was all over the spectrum. When I was in that cult, the Word of Faith movement, it was always positivity, speak good things into existence. And I mean, it was a form of Gnosticism. It was a cult the early church in the first 3 centuries had to battle. In fact, the first epistle of John, 1 John, that was written against Gnostics.
Yeah.
But I got caught up in it. So I went from the extreme of everything had to be positive to then everything had to be negative. And finally, when I was dating that girl, I really struck that balance to where I hoped for the positive, but I acknowledge there could also be negative. And I think the sooner a person comes to that, the better off they're going to be.
Yeah.
So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree with you, Chad. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think the other thing as well, we come out into this world and, we don't trust people to a certain extent, but it's not just because we've been told about worldly people being the way they are. It's because also a lot of us have been upset and injured by people in the congregation. So you leave the congregation, the JW congregation, they're supposed to be your spiritual family, they're supposed to have your back. But people have been hurt by them, have been sexually abused by them, they've been whatever it is, they've been hurt by them. They've made their lives a misery. So you're hurt by them, you don't trust them anymore. But because you've been bombarded with ideas about the world, you don't trust them either.
Right.
And it doesn't click in your head, well, hang on a minute, they might be lying about the world, because obviously they're actually worse in a way, because they're doing all this stuff. They're supposed to be Christian, they're supposed to be God's organization. So if they're doing all that, then how bad is it going to be when I go out into the world? And that sometimes I think is a worry as well. You think, all right, well, it's bad in the kingdom hall, but how much worse is it going to be when I get out there into the worldly culture? Am I gonna survive almost? Am I gonna manage without the organization? Am I making a massive mistake? All right, yeah, they're not perfect, I've found, but is it better the devil in a sense, or so that's the sort of thoughts that was going through my head, and I'm sure many other witnesses who have left. Am I making the right decision? Especially if you've got family in the organisation. You see, I was fortunate that I'd only got my youngest daughter who was baptised, and she had actually left before I left, which was a bit odd, because I'd only stayed in the first place because she got baptised. I didn't want her to get baptised, but she did. And then I thought, well, if she's now going to the meetings, I'm going to have to stay with her, because otherwise she's not going to be able to handle them, because some of them elders were downright nasty, and there's, so I stayed with her. I stayed there for another 4 or 5 years, I think it was, 4 years, something like that. And then she decided, then suddenly she left. She stopped coming to the meetings, she went inactive. She's still a JW technically, although she would have been disfellowshipped if they knew half the stuff she's up to. But she's still technically a JW. She hasn't handed a notice in. They haven't disfellowshipped her yet. But she's moving down south with the lad anyway. He's not a JW. But she had left ages ago, and I was left there. And for some reason, I continued to go, even though I hated it. And I think it was just simply because I didn't know what else to do. I'd been so used to this way of life for 19 years. What do I do with myself on a Thursday night? What do I do with myself on a Sunday morning, afternoon, whenever it is? What do I do in the week when I'm not doing, ministry? Because sometimes, some months, I was doing 60, 70, 80 plus hours a month, depending on, but I always did a minimum of 60 usually for a good long time, for a good few years. I was only auxiliary pioneering, but I always put a lot more hours in than I needed to, which I think the auxiliary pioneering hours went down to 50.
Hey, Roland, can you hear me? I think we got some. I think we have some callers that want to call in.
Oh, right. Oh, that's good news, Rick.
Let's give a chance to come in.
Come in, callers.
I know we had some people who want to say hello to Roland and Chad. Go ahead, you're on with us. Speak up.
I do, Warren. You know me?
Go ahead, speak nice and loud, sir. Come closer to your phone.
Well, I don't want to come too close. How about now?
All right. I mean, we want to hear
Can you hear me now?
You got to get close to your phone. I mean, we can hear you, but I'd rather have it better. But go ahead.
Okay, how about now? Do you hear me now?
Yeah, go ahead.
That's better.
Yeah.
Okay, first of all, I love this particular show. It's wonderful. The gentleman who says he's been in 19 years exactly myself. And one thing that I learned about the witnesses is there were the things that were disturbing me, that they were taught to squeal on each other, report on each other. I never really trusted the brothers where I would say something about the organization in front of them because I knew they were capable of going to the elders and turning me in. I always knew that the whole 19 years that I was in, I never did it because a lot of them were flaky. Tell them something in private, they go in and tell somebody else, get you in trouble. Before you know it, you're appearing for a judicial committee, and you're being ousted. Now,
Oh yeah.
There's a purpose why they disfellowship people, and the whole method is to keep the rest of the rank and file in line.
Bingo.
Talk against organization, the same will happen to you. So when somebody gets disfellowship, the rank and file gets put in line. They stay in place. And the thing is, what bugs me is that when somebody was in fellowship, I always wanted to know the reason why. Why was the person disfellowship? What wrong did they do to get the fellowship? And then we use that excuse, it's a confidential talk. The elders are not allowed to discuss with anyone. But that's the real reason for the shunning, and that's the real reason for the disfellowshipping, to keep the rest in line. That's how they control the cult. That is how they control the rest of the members.
Absolutely.
Get somebody else to get a chance. But that was my observation. I've observed a lot of things. Another one was, how do they know that they are anointed? How do they know that they're anointed? I asked that question once. Oh, they just know because this, no. That always bothered me. How does a brother or a sister who claims to be anointed, how do they know? Did God send them an email or something? I mean, because when an elder gets appointed, they're not in the congregation, right? But when they become anointed, I mean, really, did they get a text message from God? Did they get an email? I mean, how did they? If they did, I want to see the email.
Well, who knows? Who knows? Only them and but no, you're right. I mean, that's a very good point. I mean, they would snitch on each other, and even close friends would snitch on other friends. Well, you think there was close friends, but they would still snitch on one of their fellow friends, JWs, because that's what they were told to do. You're not doing it out of spitefulness, according to the governing body. You're doing it out of love. You're doing it to bring them before they fall too far, to correct their thinking, before they, go down the wrong path. And so they make the excuse, well, I didn't do it because I didn't tell the elders because of any malice. I did it because, it's loving. No, you didn't. No, you didn't do it because you was loving. You did it because it made you feel better about yourself. It made you feel a better witness than that other person. And if they were getting into trouble and you was telling the elders about this person, well, then you're you're good for telling them. You're loving. You're the one that's, you're doing them a favor. You're not doing them any harm. You're doing them a favor. You're looking out for them. You're looking out for the spirituality. You're looking out for their mentality and all that sort of thing. But it wasn't. It's like communism. It was just like communism. Everybody's told to snitch on everybody else, and you can't, and you can never trust anybody, really. I mean, there was one couple I trusted, and I did speak to them, and they would say things to me, and we knew that neither of us would say anything to the elders. That there was the only couple I ever trusted. Well, I did trust somebody else once, and it backfired badly on me, and I got so much hassle. And it was something, I can't remember exactly what it was now exactly, but it was something I was supposed to have said about one of the elders, and I was supposed to have been murmuring and stuff like that. And I just went, and when he approached me about it, I said, look, if I've got something to say to you, I said, you should know me well enough to know me now that I call a spade, and if I've got something to say to you, And if I haven't said something that's not overly pleasant or a bit unflattering about you, then I would say it to your face. I wouldn't go telling it to somebody else. But that still didn't, no, you must have said it because this person said you said it. And, oh, right, well, so what? They're more trustworthy than me. What? Because all their family are in the organisation, So it's very much like communism. Everybody's, told to snitch on everybody else. Everybody's watching every move you make. The minute you slip up, you're punished or you're taken out or worse, it's a bit like a spiritual mafia. You're put before them. If your face is, if you've gone against the spiritual mafia, like, the governing body or the elders, well, then they put you to death, spiritual death in this case, so they kick you out. It's, and they destroy your life because all your family are told to shun you. And it's an awful organisation. Anyway, thank you, caller, for your point. That's good. Anybody else?
Yeah, but
Hey, we got. Excuse me, sir. We only got about 5 minutes left, so go ahead. We'll wrap it up. Yep.
Do I have to say something?
Go ahead. Yeah, I've got 5 minutes. That's it.
Okay. So, I mean, there's people who throw their mother underneath the bus when they wrap their own mother. I mean, I'm saying that's just crazy. It's insane. You know what I'm saying? You're gonna throw your mother out under the bus. I could never understand that. There was just so many things that disturbed me, so many red flags. I didn't pay attention to them, and I wound up putting 19 years in this damn car.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, caller. Yeah, good point. And I'm right there with you. We both spent 19-year prison sentence there, didn't we, basically? So anyway, we're both out. We're both in the light now. So that's the main thing. Yeah, God bless you, caller. Thank you very much. Is that it, Nick? Yeah. We need it there.
Yeah, I'm still here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for calling in. We appreciate it. I just wanted to let people know if they wanted to contact me. My email address is masterslanterns@gmail.com. Feel free to drop me a line. I've also put together a special file in my drive, my Google Drive. And in that, I have put together tons of resources. We are talking about probably 20 to 30 hours worth of XJW testimonies about their life, how they got in the Watchtower, what happened to them while they were in, how they got out, and their lives now. Great stuff. I've got all kinds of scans and everything of false prophecies that the Watchtower has made. I've got some Christian books about the Watchtower and about cults in general and about the occult. If anyone wants to get a hold of that, just send me an email at masterslanterns@gmail.com. And yeah. So
all right, I think we'll wrap it up there then, because we must be running out of time, are we, Rick?
Yeah, you're out of time. Yeah, we got to get going with the news. We got to show.
All right.
Tonight.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'll just say
great.
Thank you for everybody listening, and the gentleman that called in, and thanks, Chad, for being my co-host and bringing a brilliant show as usual. Thanks, Rick, for having us on, and everybody take care and God bless from the UK.
Very good. Well, thank you, Roland. Thank you,
Night,
Chad.
everybody.
We're going to end the YouTube broadcast, but friends, it's going to go off for a while, but then JW World News is going to come on next. So get back on the channel. All of our programs tonight, except for the Healing of the Watchtower program late tonight at midnight, will not be on YouTube. All of the other ones will be on YouTube. So just if it goes off, come right back in again, and you'll be able to listen to the programs coming up, like JW World coming up next. Well, I'm just going to end this program right here as I did. And what I got to do is I've got to start a new program. But that was good. I was glad to have Roland come in. And, of course, Chad out of